Thanks for staying with us. Time now for African News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, African Union and Somali officials remain tight-lipped for now over the death toll caused by a bombing and gun attack claimed by Al-Shabaab militants. A hotel housing peacekeeping troops in a town recently seized back from the insurgents was targeted by explosives hidden in a car. Also, in one of the biggest border stormings Spain has ever seen, hundreds of sub-Saharan Africans hoping to make a new life in Europe scramble over barbed wire fences separating Morocco from Melilla. Hundreds are arrested, hundreds also make it through. And we head to London, where work by 11 of West Africa's most revered contemporary artists is being showcased and sold at a new exhibition. But first, Al-Shabaab fighters have carried out a deadly attack on peacekeeping and army troops stationed in a town wrested from the extremists' control last week. Several soldiers were killed when a car bomb went off at a hotel in Buluburdi. Militant fighters then sprayed the building with bullets. The ensuing gunfight lasted for several hours. Al-Shabaab has waged an 8-year insurgency trying to overthrow the government and create an Islamic State in Somalia. Our regional correspondent, Duncan Woodside, has more on today's violence. He joins us now. Duncan, what more can you tell us about the attack? The African Union still not officially released a death toll.
That's right, yes. African Union and the Somali governments remaining tight-lipped for now in terms of casualties on their side. But what the insurgents, Al-Shabaab, are saying is that 32 enemy combatants were killed, i.e. combatants from the Somali National Army and the African Union mission in Somalia during this attack, which took place in the early hours of this morning at around 3 a.m. local time. We know that a car bomb did explode. Apparently, it was rammed into the hotel where these troops were staying, and it was followed, as you say, by gunmen coming into the building and spraying the building with gunfire. Now, that is very similar to a tactic which has been used before by Al-Shabaab. For example, in late February, they attacked the presidential palace in the capital, Mogadishu, using exactly the same methods, and also a UN compound in Mogadishu in June last year.
Now, Duncan, the African Union's Amazon force has recently started concentrating and upping the pressure on Al-Shabaab, trying to get it out from southern and central Somalia. This over concerns that if left to thrive, its regional reach might also grow.
Well, that's obviously a threat, yes. The more that Al-Shabaab are pushed out of their conventional strongholds, the more they're likely to regroup and turn up in other areas, for example, in Somaliland, in Puntland, but also in Kenya and elsewhere. Now, of course, we do know that the regional reach of Al-Shabaab is nothing new. They've demonstrated their power in that respect by blowing up restaurants in Kampala, the capital of Uganda, in the July 2010 World Cup. And also we saw the attack against a shopping mall here in Kenya in September when at least 67 people died. But there is this fear, of course, that, yes, moving forwards, Al-Shabaab being flushed out of various places in Somalia could actually perversely contribute to the regional threat that they pose. Now, here in Kenya today, we have some news on that side, in as much as the Kenyan police have said they found a vehicle laden with explosives in Mombasa, that's the coastal city. That follows the arrest of 2 alleged Al-Shabaab members a few days ago.
Thanks very much. Duncan Woodside there for us, our regional correspondent. Now, Nigeria's unveiled a new approach in tackling the violent extremists wreaking havoc in the northeast. As the military continues its offensive against Boko Haram fighters, the government's hoping to win hearts and minds with what's being called its soft power strategy. In a bid to stop jihadists infiltrating struggling communities in the impoverished north, the de-radicalization plan will see dozens of psychologists going into prisons to counsel terror suspects. They're concerned that a lack of opportunities make young people more susceptible to extremist ideologies, so Boko Haram detainees will be given vocational training, and they'll also be offered support in the form of sport and art therapy. Well, the uprising has forced hundreds of thousands of people from their homes. On Tuesday, fear of another massive attack by the network saw Borno state authorities announce that they'll be closing all high schools indefinitely. Boko Haram's often targeted schools in Borno, Yobe and Adamawa states. There are warnings that could have a devastating effect on students in an area that already has the country's worst literacy rates. Elsewhere, it was one of the biggest illegal border crossings from Morocco to Spain in years. Around 500 migrants from sub-Saharan Africa forced their way to the Spanish enclave of Melilla on Tuesday. Hundreds were arrested as others made it across after scrambling over barbed wire fences that separate the North African country from its European neighbour. Julia Seeger has more.
These pictures were captured by border surveillance cameras. On Tuesday, while the morning fog was still thick, around 1,000 migrants from sub-Saharan Africa tried to make a rush across the border into the Spanish North African enclave of Melilla. In the end, 500 of them were able to storm the triple fence separating the Spanish city from Morocco. For most of these migrants, the journey has been long and dangerous. According to Moroccan authorities, the mass rush turned violent on their side of the fence.
During the rush, migrants threw stones, sticks, and bottles at the police. 120 migrants were arrested, and 28 others were wounded and taken to the hospital in Nador.
Across the Mediterranean from mainland Spain, the enclaves of Melilla and Ceuta form Europe's only two land borders with Africa. Surrounded by Moroccan territory, they offer a key entry point for Africans desperate for a better life in Europe. Since the beginning of the year, such crossings have become more frequent. On February 6, at least 14 migrants drowned when hundreds tried to swim into Ceuta. The latest attempt to cross the border in Melilla dates back to 3 weeks ago, when 214 migrants rushed the border into Spain.
South Africa has remained unapologetic about the expulsion of 3 Rwandan diplomats earlier this month, of allegations that Kigali sent assassins onto South African soil after an exiled dissident. On Tuesday, Pretoria's foreign minister reiterated that her government would not tolerate acts of criminality. The Rwandan ex-spy chief, sent down for 25 years by a Paris court last week, appealed against his sentence. Pascal Simbikangwa was found guilty of genocide in the mass killing of Tutsis in 1994 in his homeland and of complicity in crimes against humanity. The ruling was a landmark case as it was the first time a French court had tried a genocide suspect. Now, work by 11 of West Africa's most revered contemporary artists is being showcased and sold at a new London exhibition. From intricate landscape oil paintings to bold metal sculptures, experts say the region's talent is now set to make waves amongst the art world. Hala Mohideen has more.
Showcasing the creativity of some of West Africa's leading artists. Now in its second year, Transcending Boundaries celebrates the excellence of West African contemporary art and illustrates its growing global popularity. The 11 artists showcased here are all leading names, and there's lots of underlying meaning in this collection of art, such as Nigerian artist Ben Osagi's acrylic painting, A Poor People's Bank.
It's about what happens, how people are treated in a poor country by the system, by the banking system, and by the system on the whole, where they're into profit. So a lot of the works are about socio-political commentary.
But it's not all just oil on canvas. There's also sculpture from West Africa. Described as a rising star in his native Nigeria, Fidelis Odogwu works using visual narratives from his native country and explains the peaceful message behind his mind-bending metalwork.
The message or the philosophy is that we started together as one, so we should continue as one. There should be that connection.
Organisers say the continent's rapidly emerging art market is linked to Africa's emerging economic status.
And you see that when a country is sort of macroeconomically, or a continent is macroeconomically opening up to the world, that it filters to the art as well. And that's what's happening. People are discovering contemporary African art.
And visitors aren't just encouraged to discover the art, but to take it home as well. Every piece here is for sale, priced between €3,500 and €36,000.
Great stuff. Well, that wraps up Africa News for me for this hour. We'll be back with more in about 45 minutes. Stay with us, though. A short break, and my colleague Mark Owen will be here with more news and headlines from around the world. Otherwise, join me next hour if you can. Take care.